My wife's secret affair, betrayed by the two people I trusted most. Hey, my name's Jake, and I'm 36. Crazy, right? I can't believe it's been 10 years since I was so blind to what was going on right in front of my face. I was with Emily. I thought she was my soulmate, the love of my life, and my best buddy. We met in college and just clicked. We shared everything, our goals, our dreams, even our taste in music and films. I thought we were meant to be together forever. But then we realized we had different dreams and goals and couldn't really make it work. That was a tough realization, but it helped us understand each other better. Looking back, I think it was for the best that I went through that experience. It was better than staying in a relationship that wasn't right for me or my partner. I learned to be honest with myself and communicate openly about my needs and wants. Ending a bad relationship can lead to a better outcome in the long run, right? But what really hurt me was that my best friend, Ryan, was always there for me. We'd been best friends since high school, and he was the best man at my wedding. We were like brothers, and I trusted him completely. I thought he was my closest confidant, but then I found out that he'd been seeing my ex-girlfriend, Emily, behind my back. It turns out that they'd been dating for years, and she was the one who had introduced us. There were so many signs that should have warned me, but I just ignored them. I was so blinded by my trust in Ryan that I didn't see what was right in front of me. Now, I'm trying to move on and rebuild my life. I know that I have to be more careful about who I trust in the future, but I also know that it's okay to make mistakes and learn from them. So, there was this time when I was about a year into my marriage, and I noticed my wife and her friend texting a lot. I thought maybe they were planning something for my birthday, and didn't really worry about it, because they were just friends. You know, what's wrong with that? Also, when they'd spend more time chatting at parties, it didn't bother me because I was busy with work, and I trusted them. Then, over time, I started noticing that Ryan was hanging around our house a lot more. He'd drop by unexpectedly, and suggest we all go for drinks or something. At the time, I didn't pay too much attention to it, because Ryan was a friend of mine, and I knew my wife liked him. I just thought it was normal for people to care about their friends and family, and I didn't see any threat to my marriage. Sometimes, when I came home from work early, Ryan and Emily would be laughing together on the couch. I jokingly called them troublemakers once, not realizing how close to the truth I was at the time. At first, I felt a little uneasy, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. After all, Emily is my wife and Ryan is my best friend. How could they be doing anything wrong? I didn't want to be the jealous, insecure guy, so I tried to push those thoughts out of my mind. I told myself I was being silly, but then things started to change. The laughs behind my back became louder and more frequent. I still didn't know what was going on, but I knew something was wrong. Then one day, the truth came out. Everything I thought I knew about love and friendship shattered around me. I realized I had been blindly trusting people who were laughing at me behind my back. It was about 2 years ago, and things started to seem a bit off. I didn't know what it was exactly, but there was just this unsettled feeling in the air. Emily seemed more distant, always busy with work. She was working later and later every day, saying she had some big project that was keeping her at the office. At first, I just trusted her. I mean, why wouldn't I? She had always been reliable in the past, so I figured there was nothing to worry about. But then, there were these late-night calls. Every now and then, I'd hear her talking on the phone, and when I asked who it was, she'd just brush me off and say it was work. Sometimes, I'd catch her texting in the middle of the night, under the covers, her phone light, glowing in the dark. I thought she must be sneaking around, but she always said it was just her work colleagues. We were planning for tomorrow's meeting, she'd say. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But deep down, I couldn't help feeling there was something wrong. I tried to tell myself that I was just being paranoid, that my mind was just playing tricks. After all, how could it be true? How could Emily be cheating on me? But then one day, I found her messages. They were from Ryan, the guy she worked with. I felt sick to my stomach. I knew it was true. She had been lying to me all along. How could I have been so blind? That's when I finally broke down and confronted her. We had a huge argument, and she admitted everything. She told me that she had been seeing Ryan for a while, and that she was sorry. But I couldn't forgive her. It was too late. So that's the story of how I lost my girlfriend 2 years ago. It's a bitter memory that I still carry with me, but I'm glad I finally found the strength to let go. Ryan had been hanging out with us more often than ever before. He'd just show up, say he was in the area or wanted to chill. We'd grab a beer, chat about old times, and it was all good. But then there were these weird moments. I just couldn't shake them. One night, we were at a friend's place. I went outside for some air, and there was Ryan and Emily chatting in the kitchen. It was weird because they seemed close, like they were into each other. Then they moved away like nothing happened. My gut told me something was up, but I couldn't put my finger on it. A few weeks later, I took a work trip for a couple of days. It was only a short trip, but I still had that uneasy feeling when I was packing. Emily was excited for me to go and tried to brush off my worries with quick kisses and I love yous while she helped me pack. I left, and during my absence, something just didn't feel right. I even messaged Ryan to check in, and he jokingly reassured me, "Don't worry, man. I've got your back." Looking back, it's crazy how the whole thing made me sick. After I got back from my trip, things seemed normal at first. Emily was her usual self, and Ryan hadn't shown up for a few days, which was a relief. But then I found this thing that made my heart sink. I was unpacking my bags, and there was Emily's phone on her nightstand, and there was a text from Ryan. It wasn't a big deal, just a had fun last night message, but it was enough to make my stomach churn and my brain go crazy. I wondered what they were doing while I was gone. I felt so mad, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe they went out with friends or something. Maybe there was nothing to it at all. Later that night, I tried to calmly confront Emily. "Hey, did you know Ryan texted you? Can you tell me what it was about?" I said, trying to smile. She didn't even hesitate. "Oh, it's nothing. We just went to a bar with friends while you were away. No biggie," she said like it was nothing. I wanted to believe her, but there was something in her eyes that made me doubt. My chest started to tighten with anger and fear. I let it go, though, because I didn't want to ruin our marriage over a possible misunderstanding. Over the next few months, things got tense between us. Every time I'd walk into a room, Emily would quickly hide her phone. We were constantly messaging each other, and it made me feel like an intruder in our own home. Then one night, everything changed. I was going through old photo albums, thinking about our wedding and the early years, and then I found a folder I'd never seen before. It was buried deep in the back of the archives, like someone didn't want me to see it. I opened the folder, and my heart dropped. There were pictures of Emily and Ryan, dozens of them. Some were innocuous, group shots from parties and events, but as I kept scrolling, the images got more personal. Photos of them together at places I didn't know. Bars, parks, even hotel rooms. My hands were shaking as I flipped through the images, each one like a punch to the gut. I'd been in denial so long, but now it was clear. My wife and best friend had been having an affair, and it had gone on for years. Finding those photos totally shattered the fantasy I'd been living in for so long. My heart was racing as I sat there in front of my computer screen, going through images that felt like some kind of nightmare. Every click revealed more proof, tearing apart everything I thought I knew about my marriage and our friendship. I felt so stupid, and then the truth hit me. I couldn't just sit there anymore. I jumped up, paced around the room, thinking about what to do. Should I confront her right away? Call Ryan to get his side of the story? My blood was boiling, my fists clenched. How could this be happening to me? Emily, the one I trusted with everything, betraying me with Ryan, my best buddy? But deep down, I still had a part of me hoping for another explanation. Maybe the pictures were old, or maybe they weren't what I thought they were. But as I tried to reason with myself, I knew I was lying. The truth was right in front of me, and I couldn't deny it anymore. That night, I said nothing to Emily. I wanted more proof before talking to her. For the next few days, I watched her closer than ever. Every interaction with Ryan, every look at her phone, everything became so clear. Why hadn't I noticed before? One evening, while Emily was in the shower, I grabbed her phone from her nightstand. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Luckily, I remembered her password. What I saw confirmed my suspicions. There were hundreds of texts between her and Ryan going back years. Some of them were just harmless friendly chats between two people who know each other well. But then there were other texts that were way more than that. Late at night, they would exchange messages full of inside jokes and flirtatious comments. Sometimes they even planned to meet up without me knowing. Reading those texts hurt my heart. Messages like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," or "Last night was amazing." "I miss you" made me feel sick. For years, they were meeting behind my back. They were lying to me and carrying on a secret affair. I kept scrolling through my phone, looking for more proof. That's when I found some pictures. Selfies of the two of them together in public places and hotel rooms, smiling and holding hands. My heart sank. It felt like the walls were caving in on me. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall, but I resisted. I knew I needed to stay calm and think things through. If I confronted her right then, she'd deny it and probably turn it around on me. So I had to take a more careful approach. The next day, I called in sick from work. I told Emily I wasn't feeling well, and she went off to work like nothing was wrong. Ryan was coming over later that night to hang out, but I had zero intention of seeing him. Instead, I spent the day gathering evidence. I downloaded all our text messages and took screenshots of the photos, making copies of everything. They weren't going to get away with this. When Emily came home that night, she acted normal, like her usual loving self. She gave me a kiss on the cheek and asked how I felt. We talked for a bit about her day, but everything she said felt fake. Then Ryan showed up. He walked in like he owned the place, cracking jokes and suggesting we play pool in the garage. I hardly looked at him, overwhelmed with anger, but I didn't want to lose it yet. I wanted them to admit it, catch them red-handed, so there'd be no doubt in my mind I knew what they were up to. So I said I wasn't feeling well and headed upstairs, leaving them in the living room to hang out. But instead of heading to bed, I snuck back downstairs and stood outside the door listening. My heart was racing as I heard them at first, just chatting like always. Then something happened. Ryan's voice dropped to a whisper when he asked, "So when are we telling him?" My blood ran cold. Who did he mean? I leaned closer, pulse racing as I tried to hear Emily respond. "Not yet," she said softly. "He's been stressing out lately, and I don't want to add to his stress. Let's give him some more time." I was in shock. They were talking about me, my life, like I was an obstacle they had to get around, while they continued with their betrayal. They sounded like they were planning to bring me down, destroy me without too much trouble. But at that point, I knew what I had to do. I'd had enough. I had proof of their wrongdoings. It was time to stand up for myself. That night, everything went downhill. I was standing outside the living room listening to their quiet voices, and I felt this fire inside me like I'd never felt before. It was like a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak all rolled into one. They were talking about me like I was some problem they had to solve. Like I wasn't even human, just an obstacle to their messed up love affair. I couldn't take it anymore. On autopilot, my body opened the door, and I walked into the living room. They both turned to look at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in their eyes. Ryan's usual smirk faltered, and Emily froze with wide eyes. "What's up?" I asked in a low, almost calm voice, but on the inside, I was shaking. They didn't answer right away. Ryan was looking at Emily, waiting for her to talk, to tell some story that would save them from the situation. But there was no saving this time. I had them both cornered, and they knew it. "Jake, what are you talking about, man?" Emily asked, her voice quivering. She tried to fake a smile, pretending like everything was fine, but I could tell she was scared. I'd seen that look before, the same look she gave me when I first asked about Ryan. But I wasn't letting it go. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and showed them both the screen. "So, tell me what you've been hiding," I said again. "You want me to show it to everyone?" Silence fell over the room. Emily's face paled and Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I scrolled through the photos on my phone. Photos of them together, messages they'd exchanged, and showed them. As I did, I saw the blood drain from Emily's cheeks and her hands start to tremble. Ryan, on the other hand, just looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. "How long has this been going on, huh?" I asked, my own voice shaking with barely suppressed anger. "How long have you guys been lying to me?" Neither of them said anything at first. Emily tried to say something, but couldn't get the words out. Then Ryan finally spoke, his voice soft and full of regret. "Jake, man, I'm so sorry," he said, running his hands through his hair. "I never meant for things to get this way. You didn't mean to cheat on my wife?" I asked, my voice getting louder. "Don't try to make it sound like it was an accident." Emily finally found her words. "Jake, please let me explain. This was never supposed to happen," she said, standing up from the couch. "I didn't want to hurt you. I still love you." I interrupted her. "Don't say that. Not after what you've done." Tears were forming in her eyes. I wasn't feeling sorry for her anymore. All I could think about was the years of lies and stolen time between her and Ryan while I was sitting there, trusting both of them. "How long has it been going on?" I asked more forcefully. "Exactly how long have you been doing this behind my back?" Emily swallowed hard and looked at the floor. "A few years," she admitted softly. "It started not long after we got married." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. All this time, even when we were newlyweds, she had been deceiving me. I felt sick. How had I been so stupid? How could I have trusted her? Trusted both of them so completely. "And you," I turned to Ryan. "You were supposed to be my best friend. How could you do this? How can you look at me and pretend everything's fine?" Ryan looked down, trying to avoid my gaze. "I don't have any excuse, Jake," he said quietly. "I know I screwed up. I've been living with guilt for years." "Guilt," I said, my voice full of anger. "That didn't stop you from seeing me every weekend. That didn't stop you from cheating while I was away on business trips." Emily stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Jake, I'm sorry. I know that means nothing now, but I really do love you. I got confused. I made a mistake and never meant to hurt you." Tears welled up in her eyes as she reached for my arm, but I took a step back. A mistake? Buying the wrong thing at the store is a mistake, but what she did was something else. It was betrayal. She broke down into tears as my emotions started to take over. "Trusting you," I said, my voice cracking. "Putting my life in your hands, and this is how you repaid me?" The room was so tense. It was like you could cut the air with a knife. For a second, nobody said a word. Emily was trying to wipe her tears away, and Ryan looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. I wasn't done yet. "You know what the worst part is," I said, my voice so quiet it was barely a whisper. "I'd do anything for you guys, anything to see you happy. I saw Ryan as a brother, but you've stabbed me in the back the whole time." I couldn't even look at them anymore. The two people I thought I could trust had betrayed me, and there was no going back. Finally, I just said, "Get out of my life, both of you. Don't bother calling me or coming around here anymore. I don't want to see either of you ever again." Ryan stood there like he wanted to say something, but I just left the room before he could. The night I finally confronted them, Everything I thought I knew seemed to come crashing down. My marriage, my relationships, it was all built on a lie. Standing there, I didn't know what to do. I knew I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I needed some time to breathe and figure out what the hell was going on. As I left the house, grabbing my keys and not saying a word to anyone, Emily called after me, her voice full of despair. But I didn't turn back. I just drove aimlessly around our quiet town that night, replaying every moment of the last few years in my head. It felt like I was in a movie playing the part of the oblivious spouse, while all the real drama was happening behind the scenes. I ended up staying in a cheap motel on the edge of town. I was just too tired to keep going. The room was tiny and kinda dingy, but it didn't matter. I crashed on the bed and just stared at the ceiling, overwhelmed by everything that had happened. In just a few hours, I lost my wife, my best friend, and my sense of security. It hurt like hell, but at the same time, it felt kind of freeing. At least I knew the truth now. There were no more secrets or lies. The next few days were a blur. I didn't want to go back to the house just yet. I couldn't face Emily. She kept calling and texting, but I just ignored her. I was trying to figure out my next move, but Ryan hadn't contacted me. I guess he knew better than to bother me. Eventually, I decided to get in touch with a lawyer. I knew the divorce would be tough, but I couldn't keep living with Emily anymore. She kept begging me to reconsider, to go to counseling, to give our marriage another shot. But there was no hope for us. Our relationship was built on lies, and when the truth finally came out, there was nothing left to save it. Ryan, unfortunately, just disappeared from my life without much resistance. I guess he realized there was no point trying to fix our friendship after what he did. In some ways, it hurt more than Emily leaving because he was like a brother to me and he betrayed me so badly. I didn't think I'd ever be able to forgive him. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly started to rebuild my life. I left the house I was sharing with Emily and moved into a small apartment in another part of town. It wasn't a lot, but it was my own place, and for the first time in a while I felt like myself again. I threw myself into work and hung out with friends who really cared. Slowly but surely, I started to feel better. But healing wasn't easy. Sometimes the loneliness got to me, and memories of Emily and Ryan would come back, reminding me of what I had lost. At night, lying in bed, I'd stare at the empty spot next to me and wonder if I'd ever be able to trust someone again. If I could open my heart up to someone else knowing how fragile it was. Therapy really helped me out. I saw a therapist a few months after the divorce, and for the first time, I could actually let all the emotions out that I'd been holding in. All that anger and betrayal and shame, it all just came out. I realized that it's okay to be hurt and feel sad about the loss of my dream life. But most importantly, I understood that my identity isn't defined by what happened. I'm not just a guy whose wife cheated on him with his best friend. I'm so much more than that. One of the hardest things for me to do was forgive not just Emily and Ryan, although that took a while, but also myself. I had to let go of the blame and realize that it wasn't all my fault. I trusted the wrong people and felt so stupid for it. For a long time, I kept wondering if there was something I could have done to save Emily from getting involved with Ryan. But then I realized that it wasn't up to me to control other people's actions. We all make mistakes, and it's normal to make bad choices sometimes. After a while, I started to move on. I reconnected with friends, spent more time with family, and focused on the things that made me happy. I even went back to working out and picked up some hobbies I had forgotten about. It was tough at first, but slowly I started feeling better about myself again. Trusting others might still be hard, but I've learned that taking things one day at a time is the best way to go. So, out of the blue, I got a message from Ryan. Just a short text, a few words really, but it caught me off guard. He was apologizing, saying he really regretted everything and hoping I could find it in me to forgive him someday. I didn't reply right away because I wasn't ready to forgive yet, maybe ever. But at that point, I realized I didn't need his apologies or explanations. All I needed was some closure, and I'd already given that to myself. So I moved on, and that was that. Looking back, it was the worst thing that could have happened, but in a weird way, it was also the best thing. It made me reevaluate my life and figure out who I really am and what I want. It made me stronger and tougher. It showed me that even when you think you're broken, you can put the pieces together again. It just takes time. So, about Emily and Ryan, I have no idea what happened there. I heard some rumors that they tried to get back together, but it didn't work out. Maybe they saw that their relationship wasn't real, or maybe the guilt was too much. Who knows? It doesn't really matter anymore because I'm moving on. For the first time in ages, I'm looking forward to the future. If you like such stories, then be sure to subscribe to the channel. It will be the biggest support for me.